Hi. In this video, we're going to talk about where to get started with Bubble. If you're looking into no code in general, Bubble's a great starting place. I tried to learn HTML, I tried to learn Java, I tried to learn C++, I tried to learn Game Maker at one point when I was interested in making video games. And coding was always fun, but it came down to essentially you're learning an entirely new language. And I had a very hard time learning German. So trying to learn another language was very hard. I actually failed out of learning German in college and had to change my degree because it was requiring to learn another language, and I couldn't get it at the time. And so when I went to learn coding was essentially learning another language again. So for me, learning coding is an option, but it was maybe not the best option for me. And part of that also has to do with the amount of time sink it takes. You're going to spend years learning how to code before you can essentially go through and build out large applications or anything that has a lot of widespread functionality. Whereas with something that's no code, you can learn it 1 month and start building something with actual application the next. You might even be able to do it within a week if you're really devoting a lot of time to it. So where to get started? I think Bubble's a great place to start. I started just by learning these interactive lessons. And then you also have these little ones down here. But what I did was I learned how to build with these little videos here, or these interactive ones here. Well, they'll point where things are, and I learned them that way. And then I went on YouTube and I saw how a few other people built them and listened to how other people were building. And then I went in and I started looking at different applications and saying, well, if I was going to make this, this is how I would replicate that in Bubble. And then I started looking up different functions and really just playing with it. And the hardest thing to do was to decide, I'm going to try to build something, right? So instead of trying to build the big grandiose project, maybe you're here to learn how to build, right? So when people try to get into coding or no code or any type of development, they think, I want to build this big giant thing. But you don't want to build some big giant thing to start with. You don't learn how to run by running. You don't learn how to run long distance by running 20 miles. Right? You learn how to run long distance by first you do a mile, then you do 2 miles, then you do 4 miles, then you do 10 miles, right? You build up to it, right? An endurance runner. You don't just become it overnight. Same thing with building anything. So my suggestion would be to build some kind of a template app that basically you're going to learn how to build a landing page. You're going to learn how to build a sign-up sheet. You're going to learn how to build a data entry point, and then to view reporting in that. And you can make different fields that affect your reporting and everything. And build something kind of similar, or build something that would be a part maybe of what you're going to end up with, but take something a little bit more simple and try building that out first. So for me, what had happened was I actually started getting into no code because I was working at a company and we were missing an application that we had been talking about on the sales team, because my history is actually in sales, where we wanted to have an application and we didn't, and it would have been a great pain point to solve for our customers. And we kept talking about how we were going to develop one they built 1 years ago and it just sucked, so they trashed it. But they were going to buy a company, and this company that we were going to buy, 2 years in, we hadn't had it. So I figure, it's a data entry thing, I'll see if I can build it with no code. So I started learning no code because of that, and I actually ran into a few people online and talked to them about their experiences with no code before and during the development of it, which is part of what actually got me through and part of why I even made this YouTube channel. So what I did was I learned, basically we wanted to take a form and make it so you could run reports on it and have it digitally. So that was the first thing I learned how to do inside a Bubble. And then I took from that and I said, I can't compete with the company I work for. I don't want to compete with the company I work for because, I'm trying to go on this no-code journey and I want to actually, eventually develop my own company. I can't do that while competing internally. That's unethical. So I made one-on-one track. That's the first application I built that was what I built to actually be a application I fully built out and launched. So other users can come in, they can get on this site, they can start tracking their one-on-ones, they can track all that data. And I built that because my experience in management was that tracking one-on-ones is difficult. I talk to you every 2 weeks. What did I even talk to you about last time? How am I making sure I'm driving towards the right goals? How are we tracking towards your getting goals? So I built an app for that. I'm still in the development process for that. But as I work through that, I learn more about Bubble almost every day. And one thing that I think is important for everyone to remember when they get into learning anything new, like I said, you're not a long distance runner immediately. You don't have to be Uber. Start small. Learn to scale up your functionality. Start with a simpler project. Do a few projects that you're not even planning on launching, because you're going to learn so much more from trying just a variety than you are from trying to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. And maybe you're failing, but if you take baby steps and you rapidly move towards something, maybe an hour a day you get on, you try to make a feature work. I remember I was trying to figure out a way to make a chart do something, and I spent probably 7 hours trying to make it do something. I think it was just organizing data a little bit differently. And then I figured out if I made a field, did the math in another box, and hid that so the users couldn't see it, I could do that calculation and then just pull that data. And it was a lot easier than trying to program it into doing it all as a function. I could just call that box whenever I wanted it instead of having to rebuild it. And that made my building on that page easier because it was hidden, so it wouldn't affect layout or anything, and users would never know it was there. It would just be a background calculation that happened based on other things. But me doing that and me learning more led to me learning how to make things that are data that's stored according to an object. So maybe you have a repeating group and you have data stored only to that repeating group. It's not permanently stored. You're not making up things for it. And that's very useful too. Learning about that led me to learning about how to make groups toggle and disappear, right? I learned more about the toggle function just because I'd never used the toggle, and it actually makes for a better user experience. So I went back to a page and I rebuilt it based on that toggle function. And here's an example of that toggle function right here. So if I have somebody that's on this page, they read it, they go down, they read these, they click this, that toggles that group, because this is a group, closed, and then it brings that up, right? So if somebody's on mobile, this is what they're going to see, and they click that, and it pops up, and this would be the majority of what's on the mobile page. And that was why I designed it that way. So when we're building things out, we need to think about the end user and how things actually are going to look. Looking at one-on-one track, I spent a lot of time on this, and I still could make it better. I still can make it look a lot better. I can add a lot more functionality. Looking at everything else you're going to learn, there's a lot more you're going to know in 4 months than you will 3 months ago. But the best thing you can do is start with this academy. Go through how to save data, what each little thing does. There's so much Bubble can do, and there's easier ways to do it than just opening it up and trying to hit it with a hammer until something happens. Because you see all these people that post about no code and everything, and they post that it's so easy to build, and they'll post one day MVP, right? Well, that person that built a one day MVP, they didn't actually build it in one day. That MVP is built by them knowing what to do for months. That's built by them going in and learning. That's by them spending months or years figuring out how to do something so that they can take that skill and do it in a day. And you're not going to have that immediately, and you shouldn't expect to. So when you try to build a MVP quickly, when you think of the idea of, I'll build something in a day, you really should think of more like, I'll build something maybe in a week. And that's if I'm consistently working on it and I remember what I'm doing and how it works. And if by the time I'm done building it, I don't think I need to rebuild it. When on one track, I rebuilt 3 times. All of the things behind it that create data are the same, but all of the user interface and all the way to enter it, I've rebuilt 3 times. Just because I'd be working on it and then I'd get to a point where I'd say, all right, that would be a better way to perform these other functions. So I went back and I redid them because it gave for a better user experience, and it made my life a lot easier. Just in that by creating something that functioned all the same way through, the whole way through that app, it made remembering what I had done to create it simpler too. So those previous versions would have been harder for me to maintain long term, but I wouldn't have known that until I got through it, right? And we have to remember that while we're learning these things. So hit Bubble, learn Bubble, go to the website, learn about building apps, surf around YouTube. There's tons of content on YouTube. There's a group on Reddit that's no code. Get on the group on Reddit on no code and just see what people are doing. There are people that'll post tutorials there regularly. There's so many resources out there that I almost don't think it's really necessary to spend a lot of money learning until you're trying to get into a deeper functionality, right? If you're just doing this as a hobby, there's not really a need to go buy these big expensive courses that some people might have. If you're spending more than like 50 bucks, 50, 100 bucks on a course, it's probably too much unless there's a very specific thing you're trying to do. A lot of that information is going to end up being on YouTube. You just have to search around for it more. And if it's not there, be the person to create it and make it there. I started making a course on how to build a CRM, and I put it on YouTube because, well, it's not really a course, it's just a series of videos about how I'm doing it. But I started building it because I looked for that when I first started, because I had sold CRMs and then I moved to selling other software. And I thought, I want to build a CRM, but CRM has a lot more functions than like data entry though. So I'm building that out and I'm recording myself doing it in case anybody else is ever in the situation that I was in and they want to try to build something. There's a lot you can learn. There's a lot you can learn by explaining what you're doing to others. Hopefully this was helpful in helping you understand how to learn Bubble. Basically, go to the website, learn about it, do the interactive tests or interactive portions, get on YouTube, just keep trying and build, right? Build something, delete it, build something, delete it, build something, delete it. I mean, I took a weekend one time and I just spent 8 hours a day, for both days, and I wanted to just create something useful, and I did, and I learned a lot through that. And it's just going to sit there. But not everything you build has to be sellable. Not everything you build has to be something other people are going to use. Just like an artist. Artists make things sometimes because they are going to gain more skills from doing it that one time. They build it because they have a vision. They're not always building to sell. Even artists that sell things, they'll create something and then they'll even throw it away. Someone who's good at drawing, right? You think of a comic book, people who are drawing those, their initial drawings sucked, right? You're learning to draw here. You're learning to run long distance here. You're going to have to keep building and rebuilding until you built up that skill. It's going to be a lot faster than coding though. And that's the advantage. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this. I've got more tutorials coming.